Hey everybody, welcome back to PeopleSoft channel and to this sixth episode of PeopleSoft reporting using PSQuery. In this episode, we are going to see a couple of tips and tricks while using date fields in PeopleSoft report. So oftentimes, whenever we are working on a report which includes field related to date or date timestamps, we need to manipulate those fields as per the user requirement to generate the report. So with that consideration in mind, we will see a couple of examples in today's episode, such as how to display your current date and time, then how to convert your date timestamps into a date field, then a couple of arithmetic operations between dates, such as how to calculate date difference, how to add or subtract days, months, year from date, and then some of the formatting things such as how to extract particular date, month, and year from a date field. So, with that agenda in mind for today, let's start the discussion. So, the first point is how to display current date in your PSQuery report. So, let's say we need a new column with current date inside it. In order to achieve this, we can go to expression, add expression, and then PeopleSoft provides a meta SQL called percent current date in. Using this meta SQL, we can get the current date. Since it's a date, we need to change the expression type from character to date. Click on OK. Use this as field. Let's give some name to this field so that it becomes readable. Let's say date tutorial. And then if we run it, we can get our current date in the PSQuery report. Now, let's say instead of current date, we want to display current date time in your PSQuery report. In order to do that, we will do the same way. In the expression, instead of saying current date in, we will say percent current date time in. So this is another PeopleSoft meta SQL which gives you the current date time of your system, and we need to change the expression type from date to date time. If we click on OK and run, and as we can see, we have the current date time available. So why we may need these kind of reports is, let's say I download this report to Excel and provide to someone. And if the person checks the report after 2 days, he may want to know exactly when the report was run. So in that case, this date timestamp will help you understand that this report is as of this date and time. So the next tip is how to convert a date timestamp field into a date field. For example, this is the last date time update of a purchase order, and we only need to have this date portion rather than having the complete date time stamps. Well, in order to do that, let's go to expressions, edit expression, and then add your date timestamp field into this expression. So the field is this one, last date time update, and then simply change the expression type from date time to date. So if we do this, the system will internally convert date timestamp field into a date field. Click on OK, click on Run, and as expected, we have successfully converted this date timestamp field into a date field. Similarly, if somebody wants to extract just the time part of the date timestamp field, we can do this. So let's go to expression, click on edit, and here we need to use a meta SQL called percent timeout. So we will wrap this field into brackets and use a meta SQL called percent time out. Now change the expression type from date to time. Click on OK. Click on Run. And as we can see, we have extracted the time part from this date timestamp field. And one thing to note here is that we have this PM and AM characters present. That means this is a 12-hour time format. But what if we want 24 hours time format? In that case, we need to do a small change. Let's go to expression and we will keep the expression text as it is. Just change the expression type from time to character. Click on OK and click on Run. Now, as you can see, for this particular time, we have extracted its 12-hour time format. So in this way, you can extract date and time from a date timestamp field. The next thing we will see is how to calculate the difference between the two dates. For example, we have our first date field called as last activity date, and we have our second date field, which is the PO date. So if we want to calculate the difference between these two dates in terms of number of days, we can do that using a meta-SQL in PSQuery expression. So let's go to expression and then let's use the meta-SQL date diff. So this is used to calculate the difference between the two dates. So in this meta-SQL, let's provide the first date, which is e.po_date, and the second date, which is e.activity date. So expression type, it won't be date or date time, it would be character. Let's provide some length and then let's click on OK and let's click on Run. So now it did not work as expected. We have received some error. So let's try to understand this. So if we click on View SQL, we can see what exactly is happening. So PSQuery by default converts your date fields into a character field. So we use the PO date and activity date, right? So this is the PO date and this is the activity date. So both of these fields are being converted to a character, and then the difference is happening between these two fields. But since two different characters cannot be subtracted, we are receiving this error. So if you receive such kind of error, even though your expression looks fine, in PeopleSoft PSQuery, you need to do one additional step for date fields. So all you need to do is keep your expression as it is, make sure it is working in the Oracle SQL developer. And then all you need to do is for a given date field, add another meta SQL, which is %date_in. So I will take the meta SQL %date_in and then put the first date field into this meta SQL. Similarly, the second field is also a date field. So I would say %date_in, put the second field inside the meta SQL and then end it. Now let's try it. And if we click on Run, this time we can successfully see the difference in terms of number of days between these two date fields. Now, if we check View SQL, we can see that the PS query, which was trying to convert our date field into a character, is again converted back into a date field by %date_in. And that's why the difference was calculated in terms of number of dates. So similar to how we calculate the difference between two dates in terms of number of days, we can also calculate the difference between two date timestamps fields in terms of number of minutes or number of hours. For example, we have the first field, which is the status date timestamp, and the second field, which is the entered date timestamp, and they want to calculate the difference between the two in terms of number of minutes. So let's see how to do that. First, let's check the fields we are using. We are using enter date time and status date time. So let's go to expression, add expression, and then for calculating the difference between the two date timestamp fields, we have a meta SQL called percent date time diff. Inside both of these, let us add the fields. So the first field we have is enter date time right here. And the second field we have is status date time, which is here. Close the bracket. Now, similar to how we received error for the date difference initially, because PeopleSoft converts the date field into character, and we cannot simply subtract two characters. The same thing will happen with these date timestamp field as well. Hence, to prevent this issue, let's convert this back into a proper date timestamp field. To do that, we will use a meta SQL called percent date time in, put the first date timestamp field inside, and then again use percent date time in, put the second date timestamp field inside it. Now we can have expression type as character, and let's put length as say 5. Click on OK, use this as field and run. And as you can see, we have calculated the difference between the two date timestamp fields in terms of number of minutes. So we can say that these many minutes have passed between these two date timestamps, and we have 0 fields because the enter date time and status date timestamp field are exactly the same value. Now, what if we want that instead of calculating the difference in minutes, let's calculate the difference in hours. So to do that, we can keep the expression as it is and simply divide the whole expression by 60. So let's do this. I put another bracket all over the expression and then divide it by 60. This time we would need to change the expression type since we are doing arithmetic operation. So it should be a number. Decimals, let's provide 2 digits for decimal, and we will keep the length as it is. Click on OK and run. And as you can see, now we have the difference in hours. So we can say that 55.78, almost 56 hours has been passed for getting the last status for this particular transaction. The next tip is how to add or subtract days or months or years from your given date. Let's say we have this PO date, 10th of June 2000, and we want to add 10 days to this particular date. Let's see how we can do this. For doing this, we will go to expression, and then we will use a PeopleSoft meta SQL called percent date add. Inside this expression, we will provide our date field, which is e.pod, and the second parameter will be number of days we need to add. So let's say 10 days. And as we have seen earlier, we need to wrap this field inside percent date in so that this gets converted back to a date field. So let's say percent date in. And now the expression type should be date. Click on OK, and when we run it, we can see we have successfully added 10 days to this existing date. Now, what if we want to subtract 10 days? Well, you might have already guessed it. We will use the same expression. The only difference will be we will say -10, hit OK, hit run, and as you can see, we have subtracted 10 days from this particular date. Now, let's say we want to add 6 months to this particular date and then calculate the new date. In order to do that, we can use the Oracle delivered function for Oracle SQL database, which is add underscore months. Inside this function, we need to provide two parameters. The first will be your date and the second will be your number of months. So again, we will use a function called as toDate so that the date remains in the date format. Inside this date format, we will say the first parameter would be your date field, which is e.po underscore date. And the second parameters of this toDate function will be your date format. So let's say our date format is years followed by months followed by day. So this toDate function is completed, and now the second parameter of the add months function is your number of months. So say we want to add 6 months to our date. So our expression is complete and the expression type will be date. Click on OK, and if we run it, now we can see we have added 6 months to our date and our date has become 10th of January instead of 10th of July. Now, what if we want to subtract 6 months from your date? As you have already guessed, instead of 6, we will say -6. Click on OK. If we run it, we can see that our date has now become 10th of January 2000 instead of 10th of July 2000. That's how you can add or subtract months. Now, what if we want to add or subtract year from your particular date? Let's say we want to add 3 years to this date. In order to do that, let's go to expression and then we will start with a MetaSQL variable for our peoples. And then let's take our date field, which is e.po underscore date. Let's wrap this inside the MetaSQL. And then we will use a function called as num to ym interval. Inside this function, we will provide two parameters. The first one will be the number of years, which is 3 in this case, and the second one is the year. And this expression is complete. Click on OK, and if we run this, we can see our date has now become 10th of July 2003 instead of 10th of July 2000. Now, if we want to subtract 3 years, we can use the same expression and we will go with -3. And if we run this, this will show you date from 1997. So that's how you can add or subtract year from your date field. The next thing in our list is how to extract the dates or months or year from a date field. So say we need a new column with just the date part of this date field. So we can do this by using some of the Oracle delivered functions in case you are using the Oracle SQL developer behind the scenes. So to do that, we will say toCat and we will say toDate, and then inside this toDate, let's provide the date field, which is e.po underscore date. And since we are interested in D part, let's put DD inside the brackets and change the expression type to character. And since days is of length 2, we will say length as 2. Click on OK. And if we run this, as you can see, we have extracted the day part from the date field. Now, what if we want to extract the month? You might have guessed till now, we will use the same thing, and instead of DD, we will say MM and click on OK, click on Run. And as you can see, we have extracted July as the month from this particular date. Now, What if you want to extract the month in characters, in words rather than numbers? So to do this change, let's go to expression, edit, and here instead of we will say month, and let's put the length as 10. Click on OK, click on run, and as you can see, we have the month available in the words format. Now, in case you have a requirement where you just want to restrict the length as 3 to your months, for example, instead of August, you need to display AUG. All you need to do is in the expression, restrict the length. So if you say 3 here, and if you run it, you would see you are getting your months in words with 3 characters in length. So that's how you can extract months from your date. And the last part is extracting the year. What if you need this year from your date field? So to do that, let's edit the expression, and here let's type Y 4 times to indicate it's a year, and the length will be 4. Click on OK and run it. And as you can see, we have successfully extracted the year from your date field. So the last tip for today is how to change the formatting of your date and display your date into a different format. For example, right now here we have month slash day slash year, and if we want to display this date field into a different format such as day dash month in words and dash year, how can we do that? Well, again, to do that, we will use the same function, and here we will mention our new format. For example, we want our date in this format, the first two characters for day, and then in the middle we can have our month in words, and then finally we can have our year in number format. So this is the required format, and let's calculate the length because we need to change the length here. So this is 3, 6, 7 and 4, 11. So let's keep the length as 11. Click on OK and run it. And as you can see, we have successfully formatted the default date field as per our required formatting. So this is how you can play and manipulate with dates in PeopleSoft PSQuery. So with this example, I will take your leave for today, guys. I hope this was helpful, and I would recommend you all to make your notes regarding these date expressions so that next time when you need this while working on your report, you would be able to do things in no time. And we will bring another fresh episode for your PSQuery reporting. Thank you.